A while back, I'm fishing for cats in a river down by my house. The river is located in the woods, next to a park which is known for having a ton of homeless people camping in it. This is the first time fishing in this spot, so I walk along the edge of the river, looking for a good spot. As I'm walking, I find this huge homeless camp. It was this big hut thing, made of sticks that was filled with empty liquor bottles, a little Spider-Man fishing pole, and a hatchet. I check it out for a little bit and keep walking until I find a spot. Fishing was slow, so I just propped my pole up on a tree and started looking around. As I'm looking, I catch something out of the corner of my eye. Upon further inspection, I see that it's a man in a huge black coat with a straggly gray beard, and he's holding something in his hand. I immediately realize that it's the homeless guy from the camp, and that he's holding a hatchet. I scramble over to my tackle box and look for a weapon, but all I have with me is my little CRKT with a 3-inch blade. The guy is still walking towards me, really slowly, as I stand there in terror with a death grip on my little knife. I realize that fighting the guy is an awful idea, so I just grab all my stuff, shove it in my tackle box, and haul out of the woods. As I'm leaving, I hear the guy scream something I couldn't understand. But there was no way I was gonna look back to see. After that little experience, I don't fish in that area anymore. My cousin and I were fishing late at night. We decided to go around 9 p.m., since that's when it's the best time for us to get a bite. We got to our spot, and there was nothing but the two of us, the lake, and your normal chirp chirp or some other random animal sounds, which we were used to. About 30 minutes into our peaceful night of fishing, suddenly things went quiet. If you ever gone to our spot, you know that just does not happen. We didn't say anything, and we kept on with our night. But suddenly there was a loud screaming sound coming from behind us. I turned to look at my cousin. By this time, his face was pale, and we asked out loud at the same time, "Did you hear that?" "Yes, I did." What was it?" "I don't know. I've never heard that before." As much as we both tried to ignore it, we kept alert, but then it passed, and after about an hour or so, we had forgotten about the incident. We didn't catch much, so we decided to pack up and call it a night. When we were headed back to our truck, we started hearing rustling leaves behind us. We turned around, thinking it was an animal, but nothing was there. We kept on, and right as we were about to hop in our truck, a woman appeared right in front of us, a few feet away. She looked dirty and a little beat up with some blood stains on what seemed to be a nightgown of some sort. We shouted, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" She continues to stare at us. Then the shrieking scream we had heard before came out of her mouth. My cousin and I were petrified and got into the car and drove off. Haven't gone back to our spot ever since. We have never told anybody what happened, but I can still hear that scream from time to time. Back in the colonial days, there were people called wreckers. They would stand on beaches with lanterns and trick ships into running aground, and then loot the ship and kill anyone who survived on the beach. They'd then drag their bodies back to the water to make it look like a normal shipwreck. Well, one night on East Beach in Rhode Island, I was fishing with my father, and as we got down to the beach, we saw some odd drag marks in the sand. After about a half hour of casting, we made our way back to the truck, and as we hit the parking lot, our German Shepherd started acting really weird. We were loading up the truck with our gear when we saw a light coming out of the dunes. As we got a good look, we saw it was this old 17th or 18th century lantern. We then saw 2 more lights, and 4 people walked out wearing colonial clothes. At that point, we just threw everything in the truck, picked up our now growling dog, and blasted out of there. As we pulled out, our lights went right over the people, and we saw they were wearing ratty colonial-style clothes. It really freaked us out. Only once when I was fishing did I have a ghostly experience, and that was when I was fishing at a lake in France. I'd been there for a couple of days, and my time was really nice and peaceful. There was an old chateau nearby, riddled with bullet holes from the Second World War. Anyway, this lake is on a French army training area, so it was pretty secluded. During the late afternoons, I had the feeling of being watched from the woods at the far end of the lake. Each day, at the same time, the feeling would return, usually around dusk and from different areas, as if whatever it was getting closer. I remember waking on the last night of my trip. Outside the bivvy, it was very foggy, and I could hardly see the dim glow of my bite alarms. I decided to make a brew, and as I flicked on the lighter, the sparks silhouetted the face of a helmeted German soldier peering into my bivvy from the darkness outside. The next morning, I packed up and went home, but not before speaking to an old French estate warden, who told me that the chateau had seen some fierce fighting when the Americans liberated that area of France. The Germans had fled into the woods, only to be ambushed by a patrol in reserve. They were all killed and buried around the lake. I don't think I'll ever fish there again. My buddy and I were fishing at a certain fort in Jamestown, Rhode Island one night, soaking bait. At one point, my buddy decided to walk to the boat dock about 50 yards away. The whole walk there, he said he sensed something behind him and heard footsteps. He thought I was walking with him, but when he turned around, he was alone. He said it creeped him out pretty bad, and he never went back to that spot with me. Now, flash forward to the next summer. I decided to fish this spot by myself. I had completely forgotten about my friend's experience. I got to the dock and unloaded everything and started to soak some bait. It was a clear, moonless night with no wind or breeze. About a half hour into watching my rod, I started to smell perfume around me. I thought it was pretty weird since I was the only one there. The smell kept getting stronger and stronger, so I walked about 10 feet to my right, and the smell disappeared. I walked back to my original spot, and the perfume smell was still there, stronger than ever. It was strong to the point that my nose started to burn. At that point I said, Where's the smell coming from? Soon after, I said that the smell disappeared. That's when I packed up and left. I've never been back to that spot. The sea is probably one of the most scary places on Earth if you're a human. In an age where we have satellites, computers in our hands, boarding a ship and heading out to open water still gives you about a 20% chance of dying. I've read a lot of stories on here about strange things in the ocean. They really stretch believability, to be honest. But about 3 years ago, I encountered something out there that terrified me to the point that I will never work on a boat again. Granted, sailing isn't nearly as dangerous as it used to be. There are still definitely plenty of hazards. The smaller your vessel, the bigger chance of danger. I worked on a fishing boat that did charters out of San Diego. When the weather was good, and I had a steady supply of Dramamine, it was a decent job. I was brought on as a mechanic, but when I wasn't fixing the failure-prone engine, I gutted fish for customers and kept myself busy in other ways. But one day, I saw something that isn't supposed to exist. It happened in early July. The owner of the boat and his brother, the captain, were doing some fishing on their own. They did this from time to time, and we usually went out farther than we did with customers. The boat we had was an 80-foot former dredge boat named the Prince of Persia, from the video games the captain had been fond of. We were probably about 50 miles out to sea. I know there's probably a more nautical term for that, but I'm not Jack Sparrow. I was just trying to make rent at this time. It was me, the captain, his brother, and the first mate, a guy named Hector. It was getting late, and Hector was shoveling chum into the water in an attempt to attract the thresher sharks. Along with being a difficult fish to wrangle, threshers make very good eating and fetch a healthy price at market. It wasn't long before the captain had one hooked, and it took him and Hector almost 30 minutes to pull it close to the boat. That's when it happened. I could see the thresher at the side of the boat, no doubt fighting for his life against the fishing line. Suddenly, I saw something huge come up. Before I could shout a warning, a giant black shark surged up out of nowhere and nearly swallowed the hooked thresher whole. All that was left of the smaller shark was its head. "What was that?" the captain screamed. I looked at him with a "what if I know" expression. Then Hector ran to the stern and started the winch that hauled in the anchor. He looked more scared than both of us, as if he had seen something like this before. "We gotta get out of here. That thing's gonna kill us," the captain said, looking confused, and asked, "What is that thing?" "El Demonio." "No time to explain, Robert. Start the engine." I didn't argue. I got the thing running and went back on deck, only to see Hector, the captain, and his brother staring at something in the water. Then I realized what it was. I could see the dorsal fin and a very broad tail jutting out of the water. It had paddle-like tail that looked more similar to the tail of a nurse shark. It was as far as I could see, completely black, and it was huge. For scale, the boat was 30 feet long. This thing was probably 40 feet from nose to tail. The scene from Jaws where Sheriff Brody says, "We're gonna need a bigger boat," kept playing in my mind. This thing made the shark in that movie look like a goldfish, though. And what's worse, it was circling us. We got up to about 12 knots, and it kept up with us, no problem. Then I saw it dive under the water. This made Hector start freaking out even more. He started moving anything that had weight to the left side of the ship, all while nervously cursing in Spanish. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Help me! He's gonna ram us," Hector told me. I helped Hector move everything, and sure enough, the entire boat was rocked hard by something massive slamming into the side. We had weight down. Had we not moved all that stuff, the boat probably would have capsized. It sent chills up my spine when I realized the shark obviously knew what it was doing and was trying to capsize the boat on purpose. It made no more attempts to capsize us, and we lost sight of it about 15 minutes later. We made it into harbor soon after, and after inspecting the boat, we noticed a gigantic dent near the starboard bow that later cost about $2,000 to fix. We called the Coast Guard to report what had happened. All they did was laugh at us and give the captain a sobriety test until we showed them the dent. They took a few pictures, made some more nervous jokes, and then left. According to Hector, what we met up with was called El Demonio Negra, or the Black Demon. Hector went on to say these sharks were native to the Sea of Cortez off Baja California, and are well known there. He claimed he had encountered one before as a teenager, and it nearly destroyed his father's boat. After some research, I found out that there is even a Monster Quest episode devoted to these sharks. Of course, being Monster Quest, they didn't find anything. My theory as to why, besides the fact they work for the History Channel, is they didn't use a fishing boat. Hector said that they are very intelligent and only attack fishing boats because they know there will likely be food on board. I also found out that recently, since 2013, there have been a lot of small fishing boats found mysteriously capsized and destroyed off of California and Mexico. I don't know if the black sharks were responsible, but still, I don't go out in the water anymore. I wonder if the recent oil spills might have had something to do with them spreading out. Either way, they are real, I assure you. I observed the one that tried to kill us for more than a minute. It was too big to be a great white, and it was too aggressive to be a whale shark or a basking shark. Hey everyone, Dismal Hero here, and I'd like to thank you for checking out the video. Please subscribe if you haven't already, like and share the video if you enjoyed it. I'm always looking for new and exciting stories, so if you have a scary encounter that has happened to you, please email it to me in the link in my description. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you back here again next time.